Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's questions and answers. Here's our first question. As a new member, how can I get involved in the Rosicrucian Order? You are so welcome to be involved in many ways. Every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, we have a Zoom teleconference for new members where we have experienced members. It's done live, and we have experienced members who walk you through the website so you know how to access your lessons. They show you where the calendars are. And there's also and to access that, you would go to your first set of lessons. And in the very first set of lessons, there is a link that it says a special invitation, and it has the link for that new member orientation. So it's that's the way to find out how to connect. And anytime you have questions, really anything about how to locate something or information, general information to help you, you can always send an email to membership@rosicrucian.org, membership@rosicrucian.org. And we also have these weekly teleconferences every Wednesday. If you're in an area where there is a local lodge or chapter or a proneos or an atrium group, please go and visit with the other members in your area. Also, in rosicruciancommunity.org, we have a number of groups like Rosicrucians in California, Rosicrucians in Ontario. So there's one group called the Proneos of the Temple, Proneos of the Temple, and that is a place for new members to connect. So go to rosicruciancommunity.org and then choose to join that group, and that's online space for new members to connect. Also, we have regional conventions, and we have world conventions every 4 years. Our next world convention is coming right up. The time between goes so quickly. Our next world convention will be in Panama City, Panama, in August of 2027. So August 2027 in Panama. Here's our next question. How do I make sure I am always under the protection of the egregore? How can I make sure I'm attuned with the energy coming from the egregore? Is there any way to feel that connection? How can I benefit from it? So the egregore is a psychic structure formed by the thoughts of all Rosicrucians. And it's Rosicrucians in the past, present, and it will be even in the future. And it creates a sort of psychic cloud. So when we're gathered for a Rosicrucian ritual, when we meet in an affiliated body, when we go to our sanctums, our study areas, our mystical place in our home, and do our Rosicrucian work, all of these thoughts and actions contribute to this psychic cloud or psychic energy of what we call the Rosicrucian egregore. And we can harmonize with it in many ways. If you participate in the Council of Solace healing meditation, either in person, or you can also attune with that meditation that occurs every Monday through Friday at noon Pacific time, you're connecting with that thought energy, that psychic energy of all Rosicrucians who are doing our Rosicrucian work. And whenever we are participating in a Rosicrucian activity, when we're studying our lessons, we're contributing to and we're connecting with the egregore. And when we may feel like we need help, we can feel this presence and call upon it for protection or assistance. And it's this psychic cloud is alive and we nourish it with our thoughts and actions. And we benefit from Rosicrucians in the past who have done the same thing. So we're perpetuating its Rosicrucian energy. Every group has its vibration, its frequency, and the Rosicrucian egregore is ours. And again, we can call upon it for protection, for assistance, for inspiration, and we nourish it with our good thoughts and actions. Our next question is, what is the law of assumption? In the 1920s, H. Spencer Lewis, the co-founder of AMWORK, wrote a text that explains the proper way in which to make one's life happier and more abundantly supplied with what we want in life. And it's a technique, and he called it the law of assumption. And this is done by applying some simple principles. First, we think of someone who lives a life that we would like to live. So we use them as a model. And then we become that person for some hours a day. So if you know someone who is, let's say, very poised and prosperous, for some hours that day, you are a poised and prosperous person. Or maybe you know someone who's really physically fit and healthy. So for some hours a day, you see yourself as that person. You speak like they would speak, you do the things they would do, you interact with people the way that they would do. So you become that ideal person. You experience the emotions, you feel it, you hear it, and you see it. That's the basis of the law of assumption. And we've created a video that is based on the text that H. Spencer Lewis wrote. And we've posted in the chat the link to that video. I think it's about 15 minutes long, and it explains the law of assumption and how we can transform our life through these very simple practices. Okay, our next question. What are some exercises for good health? There are so many lessons that are provided in the Rosicrucian teachings. We also published a special edition of the Rosicrucian Digest in 2019. The title of that digest is Radiant Health, and it shares a number of Rosicrucian practices and exercises that are very beneficial to our health. One that's shared is the rebalancing exercise. And this balances the polarities of our energy. And the terms that are used are positive and negative, but they're not good and bad. They're just two ends of the polarity. And we practice some techniques that strengthen the negative polarity and then the positive polarity, and it helps create a resonance between them, which contributes to improving our health and maintaining good health. And we also can go outside and form a star with our body. So we would lie down on the ground and we'd be in the shape of a star. So arms out and legs out. And we do deep neutral breaths for 5 to 10 minutes while we're lying on the ground. And this exercise puts us directly in contact with Earth's magnetism while reinforcing the potential of our negative and positive energy. So the purpose of lying on the ground is to get Earth's magnetism. And we're also encouraged to walk barefoot in the dew in the morning. And the water, the moisture in the dew helps as a conductor for that magnetism. So in the morning, we can do deep breathing and a greeting to the sun in the morning, giving thanks for another day of conscious awareness. If we're able to do this in grass that's wet from the dew, it's even more beneficial to us. And another technique, if you have a place where you can go in the water, is to do that same star exercise, but lying on your back in the water. So you're in the shape of a star with your arms out and your legs out, and you just float on your back in the water. And this too helps us benefit from the earthly magnetism and the electromagnetic properties in the atmosphere. So there are a lot of really good exercises and meditations in that issue of the Rosicrucian Digest. I really appreciate in our teachings that right at the very beginning of our lessons, we are given practical techniques that we can use to practical techniques for good health. There's also an entire degree, the Sixth Temple degree is entirely focused on healing, creating good health, and maintaining good health. And that's a long degree of study where we go into detail on many different techniques that can be put into practice for our good health. Now, I mentioned the positive and the negative breathing, and we're going to practice a very simple part of that exercise. So I invite you to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, becoming more relaxed with each exhalation. Now, in a moment, you're going to either stand or sit with your ankles touching each other and your hands above your head with your palms touching each other. And while in this position, you're going to take a series of deep negative breaths, which means that you will exhale completely. You'll hold your breath while the lungs are empty. And when you inhale, you don't hold your breath again. You exhale completely. And you do this in a way that's comfortable. Don't overdo it. So you breathe out, you hold your breath while your lungs are empty, and then you breathe back in. So we're going to do this now. So feet together, palms together. If you can, have your arms straight above your head. You can do this lying down too. Lying, sitting, standing. So for a few minutes, take deep negative breaths. So exhale completely, hold your breath. When you breathe in, you don't hold your breath when your lungs are full. You just comfortably breathe back out. So do this for a few minutes. Okay, now we're going to balance that energy with positive energy. So drop your arms, be nice and relaxed. Now you're going to breathe in deeply. Now you'll hold your breath while your lungs are full. When you exhale, you don't hold your breath. You do this repeatedly. So do this for a few minutes. And the posture for this is, as much as possible, stand like that star. So arms out and don't have your ankles touching each other. So have your feet at least shoulders width apart. Can be even more wide than that. Arms up and out. Take deep breaths and hold your breath while your lungs are full. Don't hold your breath. When the lungs are empty, just breathe right back in again, always in a way that's comfortable. So do that for a few minutes, please. Okay. Now, rub the palms of your hands together like this. Now close your eyes and have your hands maybe a foot apart and slowly bring the palms of your hands together. Do this with your eyes closed for the first time. Move the palms of your hands toward each other. And bring the palms of your hands all the way together. And now we'll do that again. Rub your hands together. And put your hands about a foot apart, palms facing each other, and slowly, this time do it with your eyes open, slowly bring the palms of your hands together. And you can even look at your fingertips or the space between your hands. Just slowly move the palms of your hands together. Until your hands touch. The first exercises that we did, the negative and then positive balancing, this helped to create not just harmony in our being, but really a resonance. If we sit too much, we need more positive energy. If we're very physically active, we may need more negative energy. And again, this isn't good and bad, it's the polarity. So it's a stronger or more tranquil. And so the rebalancing exercise, that's a great one to help just get everything back in harmony. And then this exercise with our hands, it makes it very easy to feel the energy that's coming off our fingers. And in the 6th degree, we're given a number of techniques to use that energy along our spine, and you place it in a certain place to produce a particular result. So we're reminded often that we are beings of energy, swimming in an ocean of energy. And this is a great example that, if you go into any part of our physical being, you get past the physical part, and we have energy and information. Okay, our next question. Somewhere I recall in my reading about the history of the Rosicrucian Order that Spain played a significant role in receiving, preserving, and protecting the ancient documents and manuscripts before the Renaissance. Can you share more background and detail on that period and Spain's role? So, the Rosicrucian Order has published a book called Rosicrucian History and Mysteries, and I'm going to share a little excerpt from that. In the year 711, the Arabs invaded Spain. Cordoba soon became the heart of Muslim Spain. The Muslims allowed the Christians and Jews their freedom of worship. This situation had positive repercussions, for it permitted cultural exchanges. Spain contributed to spreading throughout the West the entire cultural heritage arriving from the Arab civilization, which at the time was more advanced than that of Europe in many aspects. A large quantity of Greek texts preserved by the Arabs and unknown until then in Europe were made accessible through the Latin translations made by Spanish scholars. Then in another section it says, esoteric wisdom also penetrated the West by way of Spain. In Toledo in Spain, a number of alchemical, magical, and astronomical texts were translated, and this city quickly acquired the reputation of being the chair of the occult sciences. By the 11th and 12th centuries, numerous pilgrimages to Compostela in Spain from all over Europe put Spain in touch with the rest of Christendom, thus contributing to an expansion of the esoteric corpus. So the in Compostela in Spain, people made pilgrimages from all over Europe. They walked to Compostela in Spain. So they brought their knowledge and they took this knowledge that the Arabs had brought to Spain with them when they went back home to their different parts of Europe. The translation of Arab alchemical text opened the way to its development in the West. Spain was the way by which alchemy entered Europe. Alchemy is generally thought to have made its debut in the West in 1144, the year when Robert of Chester, the Archdeacon of Pamplona, made his translation of Murenius. The presence of Jews in Spain played an important role in the diffusion of the Kabbalah. So we have Kabbalah, we have the ancient Greek text, we have alchemy. Unfortunately, all of that changed in 1492 when the Queen and King of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, expulsed all non-Christians from Spain and especially targeted Jews and Muslims and really most of their most well-educated citizens. So Ferdinand and Isabella forced the mystics of Spain to leave Spain, and as well as entire religions, where before that there had not only been tolerance but an exchange. With Ferdinand and Isabella, there was so much intolerance that Jews were just forced to leave the country. Muslims were forced to leave the country. In 1614, in the Fama Fraternitatis, the Rosicrucian Manifesto, to the authors of that Rosicrucian Manifesto, the scholars of Spain symbolized those who are restricted to a doctrine which they do not wish to have questioned at the risk of seeing their authority disputed. So going from before the Renaissance and even back to the 11th century, there was this interchange and exchange and openness to ideas. And so these traditions flourished in Spain. But again, in 1492, Ferdinand and Isabella put a complete end to that. And then, so that was 1492. By the year 1614, when the Rosicrucians wrote the Rosicrucian Manifesto, they used Spain as the example of intolerance and really an example of being so unsure of your tradition that you're not allowed to question it because you might find some fault in it. So the Fama Fraternitatis, the Rosicrucian Manifesto, uses the scholars of Spain to symbolize people who are so closed that they can only believe what they believe, that they don't listen to any fresh ideas. So Spain has had a long history related to mysticism and Kabbalah and alchemy and other important traditions, as well as the less helpful side of that. Here's our next question. Where does the name Rosicrucian come from? So the word Rosicrucian comes from Rosae Crucis, which is, they're two Latin words, which mean either rose, cross, or rose of the cross. And the symbol of the cross predates Christianity by hundreds of years. So the rose cross doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. And in the 3rd century of our era, there is in Cairo a Coptic museum, and it shows a carving of a rose cross from the 3rd century. So this was a symbol that then became important in the Renaissance. There are many symbols in the Renaissance of the rose and the cross. And I invite you to consider for a moment what the rose and the cross symbolize to you. I'm going to share what is a traditional view, and I invite you to think of, if you see a rose cross, what does it symbolize to you? So traditionally, we state that the cross represents the material world and our challenges in life. And the unfolding rose on the cross, with its inspiring fragrance, symbolizes our blossoming growth that occurs through those challenges. And in old Rosicrucian manuscripts, there's an image of a person standing facing the sun. So this is being in the midst of life, and our shadow makes a cross, and at the heart center, something is blooming, and it's the rose of our, it's the rose of our growth and our unfolding of that inner nature. In the same book, Rosicrucian History and Mysteries, that I mentioned earlier, the author states the order symbol unites two elements of opposing essence. The cross, whose four branches recall the four cardinal points, symbolizes the material world, whereas the rose, whose subtle perfume represents the unknowable aspect of things, represents the soul. The rose cross thus represents the mystery of the conjunction of contraries, the marriage of body and soul. And this then can also be related to all of creation, of the material world with the, the spark of the essence in this world. And again, the author in the Rosicrucian History and Mystery states, through the marriage of the rose and cross of human beings and creation, the divine reveals itself in increasingly brilliant splendor. So that's a beautiful way to conclude our time together this week, focusing on the rose and the cross coming together.